is going to be working on. You guys are going to be putting in a couple of different probes to test water quality. I think some cameras, right? So these are artificial stream units. Right now we've only got 3 that are kind of set up with water. The rest of these will be set up and working hopefully by the end of the summer. It's just a lot of work because we have to pull all the rocks out and clean them and power wash them and spray them down and put them all back in. But essentially what this is just an experimental venue that we can take natural dynamics from a natural stream and then experimentally test and manipulate different things in a controlled setting. So I'll be using this stuff for a good portion of my dissertation research. I'm studying the effects of drought on fish communities. So I'll be populating these streams with a natural fish community that we collect from a stream, and then manipulating the water level, so simulating a drought. So we'll drop the water down really low. Fish will become isolated in these pools. We'll then raise the water up. They can move along these riffles, these narrow channels, to populate pretty much any area that they would like to. And then we'll drop the water back down and do that a couple of times to see who survives, where the fish are hanging out. Like, we expect that the small prey fish, like a minnow, would use a riffle area as a refuge from predation. So, if we put a largemouth bass in here, the largemouth bass is not going to be cruising around in this shallow riffle. He's going to be down here in the deeper part.
Do you put any aquatic plants in there, or like just have rocks?
For my stuff, we're not going to be putting like leafy macrophytes. This will naturally colonize with algae really, really fast, actually. So you give, keep this filled with water. You give it 2 or 3 days, and it'll be completely green. It'll be filling with this algae. So we're not going to put any macrophytes. We're just going to use the algae, and it will colonize with flying invertebrates. So we've got a lot of dragonflies around here that'll lay eggs. So we'll get dragonfly larvae or dragonfly nymphs. We've already got a few mosquito larvae or chironid larvae that have colonized just over the last couple of days. So ideally, before I start an experiment, before I start a treatment, we'll fill them, we'll let them sit for a week or so, maybe 2 weeks, and let the algae colonize and let the invertebrates colonize, and then we'll put fish in. Because we can't put fish in there without food.
What's your water source? Is it a well?
Yeah, we've got actually 2 wells that are drilled out here. We've got a deep well and a shallow well. I'm not sure about the feet, how far down, but the shallow well is a couple thousand feet, and then the deep well is like really, really, really deep here. Oh, wow. From what I hear. We have, essentially an endless water supply. I don't think that we'll ever use it. We use a lot of water to fill and flush these things, but we just, groundwater. Let's turn these things on so you can see how it works. We've got the trolling motors off. So we want to mimic a natural stream environment, one that's got flowing water, and then as the drought progresses, the flow will dissipate. So we've got these trolling motors in reverse. It'll suck water from the bottom tank, suck it all the way up to this black corrugated tubing. It'll hit this board, and then it'll flow back down. So if you give it a second, it'll all start flowing.
Good job.
Yeah, and it really works. It works really well. As far, what we want is we want a flowing riffle. We want a kind of slack water pool area. So, riffle dwelling fish like minnows and some darters or some smaller fish will have habitat, and then the pool dwelling fish like your sunfish, that kind of stuff, will also have habitat. What else is there? This whole facility, not just, this right here, we've been building and developing over the last 2 years. So this is pretty new. We've only done really 2 experiments out here over the last year with varying levels of success. So what we're doing right now, what I'm doing for the summer, is kind of developing a pilot, building on some of the mistakes we made over the past year with these things. But we hope to have these things running kind of year-round with different experiments. This entire facility has been, I think, I don't know the exact history, but I think 15 or 20 years ago there was a big push. This was allocated to the university, and there's a Dr. Jim Kennedy, who's an entomologist, aquatic ecologist, kind of spearheaded. He had this huge grant to build these earthen ponds. I think there's 42 ponds. You see just these here. They go all the way over. And they were really heavily used for about 5 years, right when they were first developed. They did some toxicology, contaminants. So they did water quality, testing contaminants in the water and also in the sediment. And they put fathead minnows and some other fish in there to see the effects of these contaminants. But after the first 5 years or so, like the funding, that project kind of ran out, and then no one has used it since. And so you've got trees that are growing up. It's in a pretty dire state right now. And from what I hear is that there's a lot of interest in getting this place back up and running. Dr. David Hollinghouse, who's one of the advisors for one of these teams, he's kind of spearheading this portion. There's a couple other professors that are using the greenhouse, and there's some smaller studies that are going on just beyond the greenhouse with some small mesocosm type stuff. But there is a push to get these ponds up and running again. So hopefully there will be a lot more activity out here. Over the last year and a half, myself and Jessica and our lab has really been the only people that have been out here. So over the last semester there's been some other people that have been kind of coming in and out, but this is a really great resource for experiments and research. That's really all I've got as far as this. If anybody's got any questions, ask away. You guys can walk around. I didn't mow any of this stuff, so that's where the tall grass is. If you want, just out of curiosity, we can go down and see the stream. It's dry. My study site is just like, if you walk down this road, keep going. One of my study sites, I've got 250 meters of stream that I'm supposed to be studying, and I'd say 200 of those meters are completely dry right now. And just a month ago it was deep and flowing and really nice.
Can you take some water samples from
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So one of the ideas for this stuff is to put a camera inside a tank, so you can see actually what's going on underwater. So if we've got fish in there, you can see biotic interactions, hopefully some predation, just fish behavior, where fish are hanging out, and then I think there's a push for maybe a camera that's going to be mounted on one of these to kind of be looking down. So I don't know, I think that'd be pretty neat. But I think all the probes are going to be underwater. You guys are going to have to figure out how to do that. Yeah.
We're making progress.
So the idea, we don't want to drill into the fiberglass. Silicone, epoxy, that kind of stuff is just fine. We use kind of marine grade silicone.
So you want 3 probes for each of the tanks?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the actual logistics will be, where how much money there is for each probe or whatever. Again, ideally, best case scenario, we could have 3 probes for each tank. If we've got them in units like this, maybe just 1 unit in the middle here. I don't know, but I mean, if we're gonna do a remote, full out, where I can sit on my computer and play God, like punch buttons and get water quality, we'd like to have them in all, but that's for another day, I think. Just for this, I think we're just gonna put 3 in 1.
So would you be wanting to have, for every up here, have a different...
There will be variability, even though these are connected. Right now, there will be variability in between this one, this one, and this one, just by natural variation. And that's something that we can't really control. When we've had these things full and we're doing experiments before, it looked like all the conditions were identical, but we'd fill them and let them run for a couple weeks, and this tank would be completely green and cloudy, and then that tank would be almost clear, and then the next tank over would have a completely different type of algae in it. So it's just natural variation. So we will get different. You know, if we had a probe here and potentially a probe there, we might get different. Yeah, potentially different.